Are you a new clinic owner and you're wondering if social media marketing is for you? Maybe you've been dabbling in social media marketing, but you're feeling overwhelmed. Maybe you've established a social media presence, but you want to learn new ways to get social media engagement. You are in the right place. Welcome to Practice Management Nuggets podcast, where I help healthcare providers with their privacy and practice management best practices. Today, my guest expert is Kayla Das from Eva Spare Incorporated. Kayla is going to help us understand how to create engaging social media posts for your practice. Welcome to Practice Management Nuggets podcast, practical practice management and privacy tips to help you start, grow, and improve your healthcare practice. If you are a clinic manager, team lead, healthcare provider, or practice owner, these practical tips will save you time and money. My name is Jean Eaton, your practice management mentor and your practical privacy coach with Information Managers. I help you manage the pink elephant in the room. Let's get started. Good morning, Kayla.
Good morning, Jean. How are you?
I'm just dandy, thank you. And I am delighted that you were here to talk with us about social media. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Kayla, we got introduced together from some mutual friends, and I was very excited to hear about the work that you are doing to help therapists creating their practices and all of the wonderful ways that you support them to help them create their practices in Canada mostly. Is that right?
Correct. I mean, I do work kind of across the globe, but majority of my clients are here in Canada.
Okay. So I understand, Kayla, that you are a social worker and a business coach for therapists and coaches. Tell me how you got here. What's your story?
Yeah, it's really an interesting one. So I was a social worker. I worked in management and leadership in non-for-profits prior to starting a private practice. I began to become, burnt out and, really wanted to kind of venture out on my own. So I started my own private practice, like, many of your listeners have. And, the business side of things was so easy for me. And I didn't realize that it was so hard for many people. It just came naturally, and it might have been due to my leadership experience and so forth. But as a result, I realized that, the skills that I had can really help other therapists and other private practitioners start their private practice. So it really kind of opened the door, and I've been doing it ever since, and I love it.
Sorry. I think that's a great story, Kayla. It's interesting that we have these areas of comfort and expertise that we assume everybody else has that same comfort level. And it's interesting sometimes to find out that your area of expertise is not somebody else's area of expertise. And that creates a business opportunity.
Definitely.
How long have you been working as a business coach then, Kayla?
Yeah, so I've been a business coach pretty much for about a year and a half. I started my private practice almost during the pandemic, about 2.5 years ago. And I quickly went into business coaching pretty soon after, when I realized that the skills that I had were really aligned with that. Even in my private practice, I work with workplace burnout, workplace stress, and just career fulfillment overall. So it really aligned with kind of the business career growth aspect. So it really wasn't that much of a transition, just moving towards a different clientele.
Okay, thank you. So, Kayla, before we get into your tips about creating engaging social media posts, I ask all of my guests, what is your number one tip for healthcare providers and clinic managers and business owners about social media engagement?
My number one tip for clinic managers and social media marketers is essentially to choose one or two social media platforms that you're familiar with. One of the biggest mistakes that private practice owners, start out doing is being on every single platform that's out there. And it can become overwhelming pretty quickly. So you really don't need to be on every social media platform, but instead, pick one or two that you're familiar with, but also that that your ideal client uses. Currently, in my business, I use only Facebook and LinkedIn as my two social media platforms of choice, because my ideal clients, which are private practice owners, are typically on both platforms, and I'm familiar with these two platforms myself.
Okay, that's a great tip. Keeping it small so that it's manageable and knowing where your clients are, that's a really big piece of that as well.
Definitely.
Okay. And it's good practice to be able to be comfortable in that particular platform. So it's an area where you feel comfortable that you're going to learn and observe and participate in a more meaningful way.
I agree because it's hard learning new platforms, and especially if you're trying to learn new platforms and market on them as well, it can become overwhelming so quickly.
Right. Now, LinkedIn is one of my favorite social media platforms too. And I agree with you, as business owners, as healthcare providers, having that professional profile and in LinkedIn is a really important step.
I agree.
So if you haven't already connected with Kayla and me on social media on LinkedIn, please go out and do that. Connect with us and remind us where you heard about us so that we can respond back to you and become a connection on LinkedIn. So, Kayla, let's get into your tips about 5 strategies for writing engaging social media posts for your practice. We have a social media platform. We'll assume it's LinkedIn, and we've got an account set up. How do we get started with promoting our practice?
Yeah. Yeah, well, the first strategy is to really have a clear understanding of the problem or pain point that your social media post will eventually address. Finding the problem or pain point can really focus on, why should your ideal client, continue to click on your profile and learn more? This can, whatever the problem or pain point is, it can be paraphrased or rephrased into a statement or a question that really hooks your ideal client so that they stop scrolling and click on your post to learn more.
So, Kayla, what would be an example of a pain point?
Yeah, so a pain point might be a reason on why your ideal client is coming to serve you. So when your ideal client is coming for your services, what questions are they asking? What circumstances or problems or issues are they seeking support with? And then paraphrasing that either into a question or a statement can be very powerful because your ideal client can see themselves through that first line in your social media post.
Okay. So grabbing their attention with something that's meaningful for them, that's a great place to get started. So what would be your next strategy?
Yeah, so strategy number 2 would be writing your social media post as if you're speaking directly to your ideal client. This means using you statements that are directed towards your ideal client. One of the most common mistakes I see practitioners do in their marketing copy is talking more about themselves, using I statements a lot, talking about their credentials, their practice, and less about how their services can help their client solve that particular problem or issue that their client is experiencing. So strategy number 3 is having a clear and direct call to action in every post. Don't just assume that your ideal client knows exactly what they're supposed to do next, even though sometimes it could be pretty clear, but give them exact steps. So at the end of your post, when you create it, ask them, email or tell them, email me today, call us now, click here to learn more about our blog, or take our free quiz by clicking the link below. It's really important to tell your ideal client what you want them to do next, because this really helps with engagement and for them to follow through with the next step you want them to follow through with.
That's a good point. And just because it's obvious to you doesn't mean it's going to be obvious to them.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, that's a good point. What about strategy 4?
Yeah, so strategy 4 is creating beautiful images for your post. Now, sometimes this can be really challenging, especially since we're not like graphic designers, but beautiful images really can be a game changer on social media because it's the images that actually attract your ideal client first. They'll see the image and then they'll click on your post to actually read the copy and to learn more about you. A part of also beautiful images as well is when we think about copy, like marketing copy, you can also use emoticons in your copy. And sometimes that is kind of its own little image that can really stand out amongst other posts that's on social media.
What is an emoticon?
So an emoticon, usually it's on Mac products, but usually whether it's on your iPhone or your Mac, they're like the smiley faces or they're, the happy faces, the hearts, all of those little icons that you can use in your copy to really help you stand out amongst all of the words that are on the page on social media.
Okay. I am a PC user, Kayla, and I found a cute little hack that works on a lot of platforms. Is on a PC base, you can use the Windows key on your keyboard for your desktop and the semicolon key simultaneously, and that will bring up an emoticon menu that works on not every platform, but many platforms where you're going to enter any type of text.
Well, that's a wonderful tip. I'm a Mac user, so I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, that cool little thing to be able to use those little icons and emojis.
Definitely. They can really stand out on social media for sure. Some tips in regard to how creating beautiful images.
Perfect, because that is not my specialty. How can you
Yeah.
help me?
Yeah. So creating beautiful images is not always that easy because we're not graphic designers. But the truth is, you really should spend more time on creating the image than the actual post itself. The reason is again, because when you're going through social media, it's the images that catch your attention, right? It's the copy that's kind of second. So you can create posts really easy on a lot of different software platforms. There's a platform called Template, Adobe Photoshop, and my personal favorite and the one that I use is Canva. And all of these platforms have its own, strengths in regard to creating social media posts and images. But with Canva, they actually have a free plan with an array of free photos that you can use, fonts, colors, elements. So this can really help you really easily create something so that you can create those images quickly and effectively. And it's also important to know that social media images, depending on the platform that you're on, they do have different sizes. So by creating an image for one platform, it may not necessarily be compatible for another platform. So I'm going to give you some sizes if you do start creating social media images on what to kind of look for. Now, Meta, which is Facebook's new company name, recommends that Facebook post images should be around 1,080 times 1,350 pixels. And Instagram posts should be 1080 by 1080. However, I use Canva's suggested sizes, which are a little different in size, but they're always worked perfectly for me.
Okay. And Canva is an easy tool to use, and they will make suggestions so that you can get the right sizes for the right platform.
Exactly. So personally, I use what Canva provides me, and I've never went wrong with using them.
Okay. So Canva is a free tool that anyone can sign up for. It gives you all sorts of opportunities for grabbing images and fonts and colors and styles, and you can mix and match. And that kind of helps you to develop your brand strategy, isn't it? If you can have something that kind of follows some key points from one campaign or one series of images to another.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So building beautiful social media images, you don't have to be a graphic artist to do it. That's good news for all of us who are, color impaired like I am. I can't put two colors together to save my soul. But you've got one more strategy.
I do. And ironically, the fifth strategy is having a social media strategy. Having a strategy can really guide your posts and your social media campaigns because we don't just want to post because we're just going to put a post out in the world, right? We want to really have a reason, a purpose, or really a campaign that can really engage our ideal clients. And I'm going to give you some questions to ask yourself if you are wanting to create a social media campaign or strategy. First of all, going back to strategy one, what are the problems or issues that your ideal client is asking you about frequently? These are really gold mines for any type of marketing, but especially for social media marketing, right? So what are they looking for help with? What situations are arising in their lives that They, want a quick win essentially. And then ask yourself, what strategies or steps or solutions or support do I give them in order to help them solve their problem or issue? Because you have the reasons, the resources, the support that you provide your clients every day. Giving small support along the way can really help them have small wins in their lives. And then when you know what those strategies are, those steps or solutions that you can provide, and you know what the problem is, write about one strategy or step or solution per post, but you can have multiple posts in a campaign. So if you have one specific issue that a client is experiencing and you have multiple strategy steps or solutions, you can, create multiple posts on that particular problem with your solutions and schedule them, whether it's on a daily posting, every 2 days, weekly, whatever it is that feels, appropriate for you and your business. But that way you're really engaging your ideal clients beyond just the one post, right? Sometimes if we're posting one post here and one post here, and they don't always connect to each other, we can lose our ideal clients. And as a result, they're not really engaged on social media because there's so many things happening at once.
This is a really great example of your tips here, Kayla. So as a business coach, one of the questions I'm assuming that you hear from your clients is, gee, how do I do social media?
Exactly.
All right. So you've created the content about this podcast, about your 5 engaging tips to do social media. And each of those tips could be turned into one social media post that you could attract people that need help with their social media posts.
Exactly. And this could be 5 days worth of social media posts, right? So it doesn't take a lot of work or a lot of content that we need to kind of come up with because we already have these, right? So small little steps or strategies can be multiple days and even weeks of our social media posts.
And you're being very generous about giving valuable content tips that your ideal client, your partners, or people in business who need help with coaching that they want to hear. So it gives them that opportunity to hear from you, to like you, to trust you, so that at the end of that campaign, or maybe the next campaign, now that they've connected with you on LinkedIn, when they're ready to make that jump, that they need a coach to help them with their business, your name's going to come up to the top of their mind.
Exactly. Yeah. And, there's something important to also know about social media as well, is that people are on social media to be inspired, to be entertained, and, to kind of get advice in some ways. So really, when we're posting and creating these campaigns, or our strategy is to not just always sell ourselves, but although that is a part of it, right? But it's about really giving more than getting, because exactly for what you just said, right? It's then they're going to remember you as the person that they built trust with, right? They tried something, they got a small win from it. And as a result, you're going to be the first person that they think about because you help them for free, essentially.
Right. Okay. And, sometimes this takes a long time for people to get to a point where they need to push that button to get that next level of help from you in your business, in your practice. But in the meantime, you've developed that relationship, and relationships is what sells the services in your business. And, it may take me a while before I'm ready to hire you for your services, but I might have a friend or a buddy who needs you before I do. And I'll refer them to you because I've developed that like, know, and trust relationship with you.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
So we don't always see immediate wins from our social media campaigns. If you do, that's fantastic. Share that with me because I want to follow and see what you're doing. But sometimes it does take a while. What type of advice would you give to somebody who's just starting with social media about what to expect with their campaigns?
Yeah, well, I actually have kind of like a little activity for your listeners to kind of do on their own so that they can really help them understand the behaviors or the patterns that their ideal clients are doing on social media. So a great way to really understand what attracts your clients on social media is to really notice your own patterns on social media. So when you're scrolling on whatever platform that you use, the next time that you click on a sponsored ad or something that's not, your friend's post, ask yourself, what caught my attention with this particular post? Were there specific colors, specific fonts, specific images that caught your eye? How was the copy of the post structured or formatted? Now, it's important not to copy the copy, but instead to look for cues within it, or clues, sorry. Instead, to look for the clues within it to why you stopped scrolling through social media and why you clicked on that post to read. Because once you know why you did it, you can really understand what's going to attract your ideal client, because it's those things that catch people's attention.
Right. So being able to watch those influencers, but even just people that you admire, it might be a product that's similar to what you provide, but it might be something entirely different that helps you to keep current. And, if it caught your attention, then it's likely going to catch the attention of people like you who might need your services.
Exactly.
So starting with a blank Canva page or, a blank page to start my social media campaign can be pretty daunting. How can you help us with that?
Yeah, well, Jean, I actually have it's 6 free done for you social media templates that your readers can customize into Canva, into the free plan that can really fit your next social media post. And you can edit the images, you can edit the colors, but essentially it's all done for you.
Done for you is a great option. So if you are interested in downloading Kayla's offer for these free social media posts, you can go to informationmanagers.ca/likes Kayla, Kayla, and that will bring you directly over to Kayla's page where she will share with you these social media posts that you can then use in Canva. So Kayla, how does that work? Do they download these images or do they have to create a social media account first in Canva and then they can get access to the images?
Great question. So first they would have to create an account with Canva, and then they would brought into just the main platform. It'll say that Kayla Das has shared this resource with you. You click on, accept, and it'll just pop up on your screen once you have signed into your plan. Like I said, the free plan works. And then once you're in there, you could easily just, swap the images. You can swap the fonts, the colors, put in your own, content, and really just kind of go to town with it.
So starting with a template is far easier than starting with a blank page. And this is a really great way to be able to try out the tool and to follow your guide and suggestions about creating great social media images. Having a social media campaign, having your images for your business is an important step about being able to promote your business and let people know about your business. So, of course, I'm going to share some tips about privacy compliance as far as social media. When you're promoting your business, you can use all of these great tips from Kayla about having an engaging social media platform. But what you don't want to do is have your patients having a conversation with you on social media. As a business owner, you also need to make sure that your staff, your employees, or contractors know who has been authorized to be able to post social media on behalf of the business and who is not. So it's great to have your staff engaged on your business account on your social media platform, but that doesn't mean that they can create a social media post on your platform to speak on behalf of the business. So that should be given the authority to a limited few number of people. But you could have staff following your social media platform and helping to encourage people on it. So this is a really great way to use social media in a healthcare practice that is not having a conversation with patients. So you want to be able to profile your healthcare business. You want to perhaps profile the people that are actually providing the services without providing health information or consulting. So one of the ways that you can do this, for example, is around the different holidays, having a social media campaign about your favorite Christmas recipes, and then having a spotlight for each of the staff in your organization that are sharing their favorite Christmas recipe might be an appropriate social media campaign for you. You get the benefit of having something out there so that your patients, the people that you want to attract, get to learn and understand and become familiar with the services and the people that you provide. But you're not providing medical advice, and you're not encouraging patients to share their healthcare history with you on social media. We don't want to do that. We do want to have people be able to find your business on social media, because that's an important part about attracting patients to your practice. But we want to make sure that it's engaging and not providing medical advice. So if you'd like some help with the policies and procedures about the do's and don'ts about how you engage with patients on social media, you can opt into our practice management success tip, which is how to use social media in your healthcare practice. So Kayla has shared with us some great strategies about how to create your social media practice. Now we need to have some policies and procedures about who's authorized to do that in your organization and what you can and cannot say to patients on social media. Okay, Kayla. So do you want to just refresh our memory about your 5 strategies for creating engaging social media posts?
So the 5 strategies is strategy 1, having a clear understanding of the problem or pain point that your ideal client is experiencing and that your social media post will address. Then the second one is writing your social media post as if you're speaking directly to your ideal client, so using you statements. Having a clear and direct call to action in every post. Creating beautiful images for your post. And of course, feel free to download my freebie that can help you with that. And then number 5 is having a social media strategy. And that's it. I have my own story in creating social media posts. It's about kind of getting in there and testing things out, right? Not every post is going to be, even with these 5 strategies, not every post is always going to be completely engaging, and you're not going to get a lot of likes or a lot of comments on certain ones, and that's okay. But a part of it is really putting yourself out, continuing to do it. And as a result, you'll start seeing it being built. I personally actually funnel a lot of my social media posts, meaning that, if I have a social media post, I might funnel it back to my blog, or I might funnel it back to a page on my website, or in some cases, which is very rare, sometimes I might even funnel it to a different social media platform or to a lead magnet or something like that. So as a result, really funneling can really help bring clients to where you want them to go. When we go back to having a clear call to action, that call to action can be to wherever you want to funnel the person to go. So they're where you have other content that you might want to share with them.
Okay, so that's a good example about how you've used social media to be able to get people to follow you and get further advice and information about the services that you provide.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. Yeah, social media is interesting. It changes over time, and being able to follow people like Kayla that's going to provide you with some good examples is going to help you feel more confident about creating social media in your organization. If the information that Kayla has shared with us today is helpful for your healthcare practice, please feel free to reach out to Kayla on her email or on her websites and social media so that you can have a further conversation with Kayla to see how she can help you with your practice. And Kayla, which is the best email address for people to reach you at?
Yeah, so the email that you can reach me at is at info, I-N-F-O, at kayladas.com. So KAYLADAS.com.
Okay. And make sure that you follow us in the show notes for the podcast for all of the links to the offer that Kayla has shared with us about the social media posts in Canva and the practice management success tips about having a social media policy for your healthcare practice. Of course, like, follow, subscribe, send us an emoji to let us know and your friends know that you enjoyed this podcast and these tips today from Kayla Das. Thank you, Kayla, and we'll look forward to seeing you on social media.
Thank you, Jean. It was so great to be here today.
Until next time, I'm Jean Eaton, your practical privacy coach and practice management mentor with Information Managers. Stay tuned.
I'm excited about this new season, and I'd so appreciate your help to spread the word with your colleagues. First, make sure that you subscribe and add a review on whatever podcast platform that you use. Next, take a screenshot of this episode that you're listening to right now and share it on your Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or your preferred social media channel. Remember to tag me and I will reshare your post. When you share the show, it makes it easier for people just like you and who like what you like to find the show. Until next time, this is Jean Eaton, your practice management mentor and your practical privacy coach.